From Cortland, New York, America's smallest small city, it's the Nerd Bomber Podcast, featuring the best news, entertainment, and related discussion that pop culture has to offer. And now, your hosts and experts in anti-social media, Just Jamie and your friend Claude! Ladies, gentlemen, millennials, welcome to the Nerd Bomber Podcast. This will be an episode long remembered, because I am your friend Claude, and for the first time ever in Nerd Bomber history, I am joined not only by...
Just Jamie.
But also...
Cousin Adam.
That's right, all three of us are together at the same time for this week's episode. What topic was powerful enough to pull that off, you ask? Why, it's Disney Plus, of course. And that is what this episode will be primarily dedicated to. But before we get lost in the Magic Kingdom, let's discuss some details that are decidedly Disney-free. Since Disney doesn't yet own DC Comics, let's talk about arguably the biggest non-Disney headline of the week, and that is Joker becomes the first R-rated film in history to gross over $1 billion.
I think that performance, it surprises me. I don't know if anybody had it projected for this kind of a performance, that movie. It was always sold as kind of an art house version of a comic book movie. And it was made on a pretty small budget compared to what you see based on comic books also. And I'm surprised. I did not see this coming, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the key word, surprise. It's been I guess for a modern movie, a long, slow burn, and just a steady climb. And it's kind of unbelievable, and ironic, given our recent coverage of Martin Scorsese's comments and the fact that he is listed as a producer on this movie, and
right.
It pays more than a little homage to some of his other films, as we've mentioned. But yeah, this is the quote-unquote little movie that could, I guess.
It's really true. And you don't hear the term blockbuster associated with it, even though the numbers dictate that it is a blockbuster. But the movies it is ahead of, again, in the R-rated category, things like Deadpool, etc., are considered blockbusters and recognized as such. It's just funny that this one, despite statistically being a blockbuster, still kind of maintains its indie movie, like I said, art house vibe.
Yeah, it's definitely the biggest little movie. And you're going to tell us about another movie Disney doesn't own that is the complete polar opposite of everything Joker is.
Yeah, I saw Alita, Battle Angel, produced by James Cameron. He's been working on it for a long time. It certainly is... It couldn't be much more different from the Joker than it is. I mean, it is an expensive special effects extravaganza. It is meant to be a blockbuster in every sense of the term. I don't know, financially, it didn't quite reach that level, I don't think. I was surprised how much I liked it, because it definitely has the markers of a movie that is a little bit too busy, a little bit too polished. It's kind of like if movies like Jupiter Ascending or Valerian were done well, then you'd get a movie like Alita. It's every bit as busy and sort of overcooked, but it had good performances. I enjoyed it, and I was surprised, because it is definitely a very busy movie.
Okay, and with that said, it's time now for this week's installment of
3, 2, 1.
Pop. This is the part of the show where we pick 3 of the biggest current pop culture headlines and rank them as we see fit. And starting us off at number 3 this week, Disney Plus launches.
All your favorites, all in one place, for everyone to enjoy. Disney Plus. Start streaming November 12th. Pre-order at disneyplus.com.
Just in time for the 30th anniversary of The Little Mermaid, which single-handedly saved and elevated the Walt Disney Company, comes the next major game changer from the House of Mouse. Except mass technical difficulties dampened the initial fanfare of day one for Disney's long-awaited streaming service. However, most issues were addressed within a few hours after word spread like California wildfires, or Amazonian wildfires, or
Topical.
Australian wildfires. That's right. While the world burns, we watch old cartoons. One of those old cartoons available on Disney Plus is The Simpsons. Finally, a way to stream all the classic episodes without a cable TV subscription. Unfortunately, viewers noticed very quickly that all the Simpsons episodes were uploaded with a formatting problem that cropped out part of the frame, causing several key visual gags to be missed. Not unlike my screening of Joker, because fuck quality standards.
I was shocked to hear this because, especially with The Simpsons, it's so specifically, well, a lot of the jokes anyway, so specifically depend on what's going on in the foreground and the background of the narrative. And to cut that out is just beyond the pale, actually. It's half the fun of watching The Simpsons is trying to catch all the Easter eggs and all the road signs and
Yeah, the church
storefronts,
marquee, yeah.
et cetera. So I was kind of shocked that they would allow it to be released in that way.
Yeah, it kind of seems like even though Disney had a long time to get this whole thing ready and to promote this and build it up, it still seems a little rushed when you see things like that.
Right. I mean, I kind of sat on it for a day before I jumped in, and so I missed a lot of the technical difficulties that people were experiencing. I will say that the app itself is it's not the most user friendly. It loads, in my experience, I mean, maybe you've experienced something different. It loads things slowly.
Right.
When you just want to scroll to see what is there, you have to wait. A lot of times, anyway, I have to wait for the next row of images to load.
Yep.
So it's not the snappiest service. It's worked fine for me. It just takes a little patience at times.
Yeah, I was one of those early adopters. I got on about 8 in the morning on day one and immediately couldn't get past the main menu and get anything to play. And then finally, about an hour later, I got The Simpsons to play, actually. And as soon as I stopped it or paused it, I got kicked right back out. So, there was some stuff happening for a lot of people early on. But, patience is a virtue.
I had 1 day's worth of patience, but it seemed to work out.
That's all you needed. Well, I wasn't alone in not having patience. It seems, according to our number 2 headline this week, that 10 million other people also had no patience and had to get in on day one. Disney Plus reported that they had a total of 10 million subscribers on launch day, but while that might be the total number, there is some nuance behind it, including the fact that many of those are people, of course, taking advantage of the 1 week free trial. Also, for Verizon customers, they get free 1 year subscriptions in a lot of cases with certain packages.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I work with a woman actually who's one of them, and she seemed like shocked that I paid for it. So it must be nice. And there was other customers getting taking advantage of promotions, running on ESPN and the Hulu ESPN bundle.
Yeah, it's a nice bundle. I was watching a lot of sports, the NFL over the weekend, and ESPN is advertising Disney Plus every chance they get. So it was definitely in front of a lot of eyeballs and tempting a lot of people with their cross-promotional push as well.
Yeah, it might be the most heavily promoted thing I've ever seen. I
saw saying something.
Right. I saw stories of people at the DMV seeing it advertised on the DMV screens.
Wow.
Yeah. And
gas pump TV, There's a lot of that going on. I think.
Right. Yeah.
Too.
Those. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure they're inundated there. Even if you go on Roku always has it sells ad space on the main menu page,
right.
Like a little box of something. It'll scroll by. But I noticed mine now. The entire thing, the entire theme, and everything is Disney Plus.
Yeah, mine is Avengers.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
And that's obviously a Disney Plus franchise. So.
Pretty crazy.
They're going hard.
10 million subscribers out of the gate for Disney compares to Netflix's 150 million, but that's been accumulated since 2007
Right.
when they started streaming.
And also, Hulu and Amazon Prime, which are the other kind of two biggest screening services after Netflix, they also have big leads on Disney. But as with Netflix, they've also had big head starts. So we'll see if that starts to get close over time. I mean, it's going to take a while to really be able to see how the trends work out because 10 million people, it's not a big number compared to the total subscription numbers you see for these other services. And yet my social media is full of all things Disney Plus. Everybody's watching everything. There's a lot of obsession going on right now. So it's just going to be curious to see how those numbers trend, sort of short term, medium term, long term. All you can kind of do is sit back and watch it.
Right. One of the things that people are sitting back and watching on Disney Plus has to do with our number one headline this week, and that is George Lucas tampers once again with Star Wars.
He cannot help himself.
Disney Plus is showing a version of the first Star Wars film, A New Hope, that contains yet another edit of the now infamous Cantina showdown scene between Han Solo and his alien rival Greedo.
So, I do not know exactly what the edit is and how it plays out differently. Do you know this, sir?
The original one is obviously Han shooting first. The well-known meme status piece of pop culture by this point. Greedo is going to shoot him, but he doesn't get a chance because Han makes the first move. So in the special editions in '97, George Lucas altered that to awkwardly make Greedo shoot first and try to justify Han shooting him back, making it seem less violent and in cold blood that Han Solo killed him.
And also making it seem that Han Solo can dodge laser blasts.
Yeah, it is an abomination. So in this third version, Greedo says a weird word that sounds like McClunky that has itself become a hashtag and a meme. And then Han shoots him, and then there's this weird explosion, like superimposed over Greedo's body, and he just slumps forward.
Even I get bored sometimes. Do you think I had a choice? Over my dead body. Yes, I bet you have.
So it's some sort of weird hybrid, but totally unnecessary. As was the original re-edit. It's all unnecessary. But, here we are.
Like we said, George Lucas just can't help himself. I mean, there is so much fan push, I guess, to see these things as they originally were. It continues to surprise me, although maybe it shouldn't, that they don't provide these different versions. Nobody says he has to undo the changes he made.
Right.
But provide all versions. Original, restored with special effects additions, restored with recuts, without reshoots, with reshoots. There's no reason not to just provide it all, especially with the vast array of streaming service. With Disney Plus, you could definitely have all of these options. I just don't see a reason not to provide it.
Yeah, it really is mind-boggling. It's gone even to the point where the Library of Congress requested an original version, an original unaltered version, to store for posterity, and they were turned down and offered only the special edition version. So Star Wars is not in the Library of Congress because of that.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
Speaking of things that are unbelievable and have to do with Star Wars, we have our main topic tonight, our first time ever that all three Nerd Bomber hosts will participate in a discussion. And of course it's Star Wars related. Stay tuned for our review and reaction to the Disney Plus exclusive Star Wars series, The Mandalorian.
I have never met a Mandalorian. I've only read the stories.
Your reputation was not unwarranted.
The Mandalorian streaming soon on Disney Plus.
All right, as promised, here we are all three of us together for the first time to discuss The Mandalorian. Cousin Adam, why don't you start us off?
Okay, I liked it. Did you like it?
It was okay.
I
Yeah, I
also
figured you'd
liked
say
it.
that.
Okay, good. Segment over.
That's it. Done. I guess I'll start out and I'll say what I don't like about it. What really bugs the shit out of me about this show is the freaking music that goes along with it. Like, I just can't get over it. Like, I hate it. It's so annoying. And I think it's just because, like, it's not like your traditional orchestral Star Wars type of music, but I just don't like the music. And I that's it. I don't like it.
It is pretty interesting. I noticed it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb, and it's one of the things I don't dislike it, but it's definitely a different approach for a Star Wars thing, and it's one of the things that gives me this vibe of like a 90s syndicated action show that would be on like Sunday afternoons when I watch it. So I kind of know what you're saying. I just don't have as strong of feelings, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's kind of just distracting, I guess. Like, because they're trying to do like a futuristic, like Western cowboy type show with like a kind of like a Western cowboy futuristic soundtrack, and it's just kind of throwing me off, I guess.
Right.
But other than that, I like the acting so far. It's pretty good, and when I started watching it, like it actually gave me like that old school Star Wars vibe, though. Like, I actually felt like I was watching something like Star Wars-y for the first time. I mean, obviously we were watching it for the first time because it's a new show. But I mean, like, that first like feeling I got with the first few times I watched it, and I could understand it, And I think a lot of it is there was just a constant string of homages to the original. Like, there was the Garandan character was hailing in the cab, and he had that distinct wah, wah, wah kind of voice that you hear in the first movie. There was the security droid at the whatever his name is, Werner Herzog's character. There was like that security guard droid from like Jabba's palace, and there was the Gonk droid. There was a lot of these like throwbacks to like the original, so I kind of got immersed into that. That's kind of like my initial reaction to it. Like, what do you guys think?
Especially, well, not especially, but in episode 2 as well, those homages seem to continue. You get a little more of an intimate interaction with the Jawas and the Sandcrawler. That was pretty nifty. I like the acting as well. I like how the effects are handled. There's not a lot of really in-your-face CGI. I mean, it's there, but it's not, it's not taking attention away from anything. And the overall presentation is still pretty practical feeling. And I like that I forget the character's name, but basically the old pig-faced guy who's helping him is
Nick Nolte.
Yeah, I like how he has the voice of Nick Nolte, but also kind of the face as well. And
I think isn't he supposed to be like an Ugnaught or something? Those dudes from the Cloud City that were chucking around C-3PO's head. Isn't that what he's supposed to be?
I didn't even think of that, but he looks very similar if he's not.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of that either.
Huh. Yeah, let's go with that. I like I like the casting a lot for the most part. I mean, Carl Weathers is always awesome, and obviously Werner Herzog is just a pro, just a perfect guy to play any kind of like grizzled, shady character. What's his name? Pedro Pascal as the Mandalorian is doing an admirable job of conveying feeling and emotion and everything he needs to do without being seen at all, and only like with an altered voice and like physical body language to do it with. So I got to give him props for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
What I don't like is probably that the pacing's a little weird. The episodes seem kind of short, and we're gonna get to this at one point or another. But I feel like, at least with the first two episodes, especially the second one, the balance of attention has been given very heavily in favor to Baby Yoda.
The elephant in the room.
It is. The little green elephant. So, Jamie, I'm going to throw it to you.
All right. So before we go in deep on Baby Yoda,
Right.
I'll just react to a couple things you guys are talking about. The music, it's not chafing me. I haven't minded it. I've always said that if Star Wars is going to experiment with the formula a little bit, I can appreciate it in a thing like this. It's kind of like a tertiary property. It's not the mainline saga. If you're going to try things, try them in things like this. So I'm going to say that for now, I'm good with the music. We'll see how it develops over time. I think there is some familiarity, however. Somebody said it gave, I think, Adam, you said that it gives you some of that sort of old school vibe. And I think that's because it's kind of a return to that sort of, less than perfect, dirty, used up setting. The ship's not pristine. The bar is dirty. The people are, there's a wide sort of demographic of socioeconomic statuses for different people, and you can kind of see that on screen. So I think that's kind of part of them setting the vibe right. Claude, you'd mentioned the pacing. I like the pacing. I like that it's not in your face with everything. It takes its time a little bit, not afraid to be a little bit slow and a little bit goofy. I mean, I think Star Wars should also be fun at its very root. It's supposed to be an adventure serial. And I think that this show has kind of captured the fun vibe while still, not being too goofy. I was also going to say something about his acting through the suit has been pretty impressive so far. No sign of his face or anything like that, so he's done a good job with that. And Werner Herzog was another note that I had that you already covered. Because Werner Herzog is a weirdo, and I love it. But also, he does have a certain unlikability in this role as what amounts to sort of like a war criminal old Nazi.
Right.
That's still paying for things with imperial credits, and he's still wearing the insignia. I mean, that would be the equivalent of a Nazi walking around with his, Nazi regalia on in 1950s or 60s Europe or something like that. So I kind of like him in that part. And I share the same Baby Yoda worries as everybody else. Now, who knows where the show's going to go? We have to watch and see. I am already annoyed a little bit with the internet and fan culture that has latched on to Baby Yoda at the expense of any other visual or iconography in the show, or concerns about where the story is actually going, or the acting or the pacing or the music or anything else that we've talked about here already is being totally ignored for the sake of hashtag Baby Yoda. And that sort of dilution always kind of annoys me, but I guess that's just what the internet does.
Right. You're already seeing, memes that amount to basically like, fuck the Mandalorian, give me more what the show's really about. And it's like pictures of Baby Yoda.
No, thank you.
And it's funny that it's always going to be referred to as Baby Yoda until they give it an actual name. And it's, obviously it's not even Yoda because it's 5 years after Yoda died.
Right.
Yeah, I think Baby Yoda's cute, but I think, I share the same kind of trepidation when it comes to, well, what does this mean for the rest of the galaxy, I guess? I mean, because you're right, you're kind of walking a slippery slope here. So is this like Baby Yoda gonna somehow tie into like the movies now? Because I mean, he's 50 years old and he's still like a baby. Right. So I mean, even 30 years later, where the sequel trilogy picks up, like, is he going to be old enough to do anything? There's got to be a point to this, or they wouldn't be doing it. So you're right. I'm kind of a little miffed that it's like you said, the focus has been taken off the Mandalorian, the title character, to this, Yoda species little infant. Like you said, it's cute and it was kind of shocking to see it, but yeah, I'm kind of like, well, and what is he going to do with it? Because he's obviously formed a bond with it now.
Right.
Because it basically saved his life from that weird rhinoceros thing. And so now is he going to give it up, or is he going to try to protect it? So it's like, I mean, that's, a good plot device or like a story that they could explore. But you remember, this has to kind of fit into the grand scheme of things too. Like, where is this going to go? And it's just kind of weird.
Baby Yoda so far is essentially serving as the MacGuffin, but he's already got it.
Yeah.
Usually that sort of thing takes a while.
Yeah, Baby Yoda is his bounty, so he's going to have to turn it in or not. And, I guess obviously the show is doing what it's intended to, making you wonder what the next episode will reveal.
Yeah, and making you watch the next one. Well, and to kind of piggyback on something Jamie was saying too, about the Werner Herzog character, it is an interesting character because he's obviously, an Imperial, kind of like a war criminal. But this, like we said, this is 5 years after Return of the Jedi. So at this point, the Empire is completely gone. We've talked about the Aftermath trilogy of books and how god awfully terrible and shitty they were. But at this point, the Empire has been defeated at Jakku, and they've like hightailed it out of there. So there really isn't like an Imperial presence anymore, except for, probably like these little pockets of, like Nazi war criminals hiding out in South America types, like this Werner Herzog. So it's going to be actually pretty cool, I think, if they kind of build on that a little bit more. And like, is at some point, are they going to bring in like the Republic into this? Like maybe there's someone looking for him, because they kind of allude to in the Aftermath books that the Republic is actually hiring bounty hunters to bring in, Imperial sympathizers that they know are still out there. So that might be cool if like maybe they throw in a little bit of that too. But so I thought that was a good point too about the war criminal, and that's going to be a good spot, I hope.
Right. One other theory I saw floating around about Baby Yoda's existence is relates to the doctor who was in the room with Werner Herzog's character. I guess he has an insignia on his uniform that is from the clone factory on Camino.
Clones, yeah.
So he might just be a Yoda clone.
I mentioned this to my wife because there's always been the kind of clone thing has always been just under the surface of Star Wars, even since the early days. When Luke first utters the words Clone Wars, and nobody knew what that meant at the time. It's always been a thing. A lot of the books deal with like the cloning of the Emperor, etc. So I couldn't help but think as I was sitting there talking to my wife after we'd watched it, is this going to be some sort of a clone situation? Because so far in Star Wars, we've seen exactly 2 of whatever species Yoda is. And apparently they're both incredibly force sensitive, and what are the chances of that? So there's some clues that something like that might be happening. I'd be kind of okay with not seeing anything like that. I've always said, like, when it comes to these stories that take place outside of the main Skywalker saga, or even within it, I'm okay with stepping away from things that are kind of like the norm a little bit. The Last Jedi, way too far. Don't get me wrong. But, for instance, like with Rey, I've never wanted her to be a Skywalker or a Kenobi or anything like that. Like, I've been okay with stepping away from the idea that she has to be something like that. And with this, I'd be okay with a story about a Mandalorian guy who's having his adventures that doesn't have anything to do with the Force or the Empire or the Republic or anything like that. There's some things that, like I said, I like Herzog's character so far in a small sample, so I'm okay with this sort of Imperial hinting. But I'm okay with watching a story about people who, like, maybe have never encountered the Force, who've never encountered Jedi, who don't know any of that. They're having their own adventure in their own life. It's a whole galaxy, after all. It seems maybe that's not quite where we're going to be going. I liked it enough where I'm still invested. I'm going to continue to watch. But I just wonder where things could have gone if they had completely stayed away from anything like what we're talking.
Right. I think they might be leaning more towards it's not actually like a clone of Yoda, but I think the Doctor wants to clone the species.
Right.
And they just like somehow know there's like a baby species or, a baby Yoda. It's not Yoda. It's probably Yoda's kid. He had sex with Yaddle. Gross.
Well, the timeline matches up.
No, I think
50 years ago was around the time of Episode 1.
Yeah, right. So, like, if it's 50 years, they're saying that little infant's been around since the prequels, basically. So, but yeah, I think that could be the clone thing is going to come into play. But I think it's because the guy actually wants to clone the species because there'll be like some sort of like unstoppable force if you had like 200 of those dudes. So, whatever.
Yeah,
that's all.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So after the first two episodes, initial reaction, if you had to give it a letter grade, what does everybody think? I'm going to go B minus.
I always say that a Claude B minus is at least like a Jamie A. So I guess I'll go with that. Good A.
Yeah, I was gonna give it a B, and like again, I figured that I might actually beat you with the lower grade, Claude, but you beat me again, so couldn't do it.
Claude always wins the race to the bottom.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's comfy down there. But I guess that makes the average B plus.
Somewhere around there. Not bad.
Not bad at all. Well, we all watched The Mandalorian. But what else did we watch on Disney Plus? What did everybody watch first? Adam, what was the very first thing you fired up the second you got into the service?
The Mandalorian.
Oh, Jamie, what was the very first thing you fired up?
The Mandalorian.
Oh, damn it. Guess what I fired up very first thing? The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah.
I just figured as a little tester, and I got on there in the morning of day one and wasn't sure how much time I had to commit, so I fired up the pilot episode of The Simpsons, which of course is the Christmas special from 30 years ago, called The Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. Yeah, exactly. And I was able to watch about maybe 2-3 minutes and was promptly kicked off. But I persevered, and besides that, that's not the thing I've been watching the most of, though.
Wait, let me guess. Is it Boy Meets World?
Nah, actually, I haven't even watched one of those, surprisingly enough.
Get with a program.
Against all odds.
No, it is actually the 90s X-Men series.
Oh, okay.
My cousin AJ and I decided to have a little viewing party, and we kicked it off with the classic 2-part episode from Season 3 titled Sanctuary, where Magneto establishes an independent colony exclusively for mutants called Asteroid M. And then I just kind of watched a bunch after that. How about you?
How about me?
Yeah, what have you been watching most of?
Yeah, the only thing I've watched other than The Mandalorian is Boy Meets World, of course.
One of us had to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like someone had to pick up the slack. I picked up your slack this time. But no, I actually didn't have any technical difficulties on the first day because I didn't download it on the first day. I waited till the next day. Now, granted, I was like chomping at the bit, but so yeah, I immediately went to like one of my all-time favorite episodes. You know what it is? The episode. Then and then there was Sean, which is of course the Scream parody. And, like you mentioned before, it has one of the best lines in the whole series, I think. When he walks over the wall and he's like, we'll always remember he was this tall. So to my surprise and elation, sequentially in the series, the next episode is the one where Corey swipes the whiskey from his dad's liquor cabinet and him and Sean get drunk and pee on the cop car.
Right. And
then they kind of go into like Sean having like a drinking problem, like, he developed a drinking problem within like a day.
Yeah.
But that's, 90s sitcom for you.
Is this a very special episode?
Yeah, kind of.
Because when it was in its syndication run, when it was, on ABC Family or Freeform, they wouldn't air that episode because of the material. And now that you're paying for the streaming service, apparently they don't care. So, I'm excited that they actually have every single one and they're not going to selectively censor the show.
Yeah, I guess there's been a bunch of that on Disney Plus. They also have previously kind of altered the Crow characters in Dumbo, the original cartoon version of Dumbo, but this time they just air it with like a disclaimer about how like the movie features antiquated cultural stereotypes or something like that. So it's like they're actually allowing things to exist as they were, instead of, trying to sugarcoat and alter everything for like modern culture, which is really nice.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to recognize that this is how the thing was. You can put a little note, put a little asterisk, put a little disclaimer, but then let people experience it as it was made, and then they can sort of make their own judgments on things.
Right.
So I also did not download the app on the very first day, or the service that is. I actually was willing to wait even longer, but we were kind of sitting around the house with the kids. We were going to do a movie night, and I'm like, you know what? What about The Mandalorian? So I downloaded the app. I went through all the rigmarole, and they send you an email, and you need a confirmation code, and blah blah blah. Had to go through all that. We fired it up. So we started with episodes 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian. Then we watched a nice little Christmas family movie called Noel with Anna Kendrick. It was pleasant. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. But then what I did was, I haven't watched any one thing a lot, but what I've done is experience a sampler of Disney animated TV. So I did one episode each of the afternoon block. So I did episodes 1 of Tailspin, Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, and DuckTales, all of which were amazing. And I have to say, when I was a kid, Tailspin was my favorite, but now that I see it as an adult, the one that sticks out is Rescue Rangers in terms of quality and visuals, etc. And then what I just did today was watch episode 1 of Gargoyles. I never watched Gargoyles as a kid. Somehow I missed it. It's right up the alley of something that I should enjoy, and somehow I didn't. So I've always wanted to revisit it. And I was absolutely blown away by the first episode of Gargoyles, and I cannot wait to jump back in for more.
Yeah, great choices. I definitely watched the crap out of all of those shows as a kid.
And I
Probably.
will watch the crap out of all of them as an adult
now we can. Thanks, Disney Plus.
Yes.
Alrighty, well that does it for this episode of the Nerd Bomber Podcast. I have been your friend Claude.
I've been just Jamie.
And I'm still your cousin Adam.
And we will see you next time.
Later.
Bye.
If you're filled with corporate greed, everything you'll ever need can be yours if you just took them while they're young.
The Nerd Bomber Podcast is a Ghost Factory internet production brought to you by the WAM Network.